Hello YouTube, welcome to my shop. I've never made a video before and a lot of people have told me I should, so I'm gonna give it a shot and see how it turns out. I'm gonna make a blanket chest today. I'll take you through the whole process. It's bits and pieces I've learned along the way and mistakes I've made along the way as far as making stuff. So hopefully you learn something, and I'll probably learn something too. All right, so I'm going to start with rough lumber. It's from trees that have come down, and I took them to a local sawmill and had them sawed up, and these I had kiln dried. I have other stuff that I air dry for a number of years. So, take you over to the next step. We will run it through the joiner. The next step I did was pick out which boards I thought would look good. I'm trying to use the one board for one side and the one board for another side so that the wood matches as best as possible. You can sometimes hide it with stain, but if you choose the wood appropriately, it makes it a little bit less of a hassle when you're going through that process. But I'm going to start by face joining. Once I turn on the equipment, probably won't be able to hear me, so I'll just probably voice over, I suppose, if there's something I think needs to be said. So let's get started. All right, so I got one side face joined. I'll do the other boards and then we'll go to the planer and then make them the right thickness that we want. All right, next step we're going to do is we're going to run them through the planer to make them the right thickness, and we'll switch the vacuum as well. Alright, so now we got a board that is nice and flat, and the other side is parallel to that. So then we'll do the edge join, but off camera I'll probably run through the other boards and run those through the planer as well. Alright, next step we're going to put a edge join the boards, and then we'll take them over to the table saw and cut them to width. I planed them down to 1 inch. I'm not sure if I'm going to go thinner than that or not, but that's where we are right now. And this will make the one edge square to the face. Alright, so we have edge joined the boards. Now we're going to run them through the table saw and cut them to width. So now we have a board almost ready. Flat on one side, that's parallel to the other side. join this side, which is 90 degrees to there, and then this is parallel to this. Then we'll have to cut off the ends because there's a little bit of snipe where the planer kind of cut in a little bit. That's why I like to use a little longer boards, because then I can get rid of it before I start making it into the links that will be the parts for the final project. So we're getting there. All right, so I decided to make the chest about 38 inches long or so. So I'm going to cut these at 37 inches length for 2 of these, because I'll be able to get a top and bottom for a front, top and bottom for back, and then the other ones will be 13 inches, maybe a little less. I'll be able to get 2 out of there, and then on another board I'll get 2 more for the styles. So cut these up, take them over to the table saw, and then I'll make them, I think, 2 1/4 inches or so in width. Haven't quite decided, but it's kind of a project in motion. Now over to the table saw. Like I said, I'm going to cut these to be about 2 1/4 inches wide. I'll make them just a hair wider, because then I'll clean it up in the joiner. But actually, I see a little knot on this side. This is my side that I want to have nice and clean. So I'm going to take it to the joiner first, run this edge through, then I'll cut my 2 1/4 and then run it through again, and then do 2 1/4. So back to the joiner before we do this. All right, and we'll just take real thin bit off. Don't have to take much off at all. All right, so now I have all the wood kind of cut to the width that I was going for, and I'm going to take them over to the joiner, do a little cleanup pass, take off the burn marks, and then I'll come back to the table saw and cut them all to the final length that I'm going to end up wanting for the front and the back. So we got the burn marks removed. While I'm over here at the joiner, I'm also going to grab another piece of the wood for the legs. It's a little thicker. Going to face join it. This one actually has some cracks in it from drying. Hopefully there's enough wood here for me to use for the legs, but we'll see. Pretty much the same process. Face join, run through the joiner. Face join, run through the planer, and then edge join, cut at the table saw. All right, now I'm going to cut all the rails and stiles to size. It doesn't really matter exactly the measurements, but these are going to be about 13 inches long. These are going to be about close to 19, and then these are going to be about, I think, 37. Just as long as they all match, and then I'll make the bottom to fit and the side panels to fit as well. So, gonna square up one side and then flip them around and then square up the other side. Alright, so now all the rails, stiles are all exactly the same length. So then when I put them together, they will all come out exactly the same. So, good. And all the ends are square. Next step, I think we are going to probably make the mortises. I'm going to use loose tenons to hold everything together. All right, going to cut this to width now. I threw a clean blade on the saw because hopefully end up with fewer burn marks, but so the legs, I'm gonna actually do a taper, so I'll probably try and get 2 legs each. Again, if I can't, I'll grab another piece of wood, but we'll see what we can do with this piece. All right, so I just took these pieces over the cutoff saw and just cut them to the length, approximate length, a little bit longer than I need. I still got this crack here on this one and a crack here on this one. Looks like I can get about 3 3/8 out of each side, and we'll see how that goes. So we'll do that, and then we'll see if we can do a taper on both of them. All right, so So 3 3/8 was a little too much. Still got a crack there. Hopefully I can lose some of this when I do the cut. So I'm going to try to do a taper first. All right, so now I'm going to figure out what kind of taper I can do on these. These are right now about 3 3/16 wide. So if so now I have 2 taper pieces. I'll run these over to the joiner, clean up the edges, and then I'll trim off and get rid of some of the little broken areas that, and we'll figure out how to make that work. All right, so I cleaned up the inside edges on the joiner. Now I'm going to have to figure out how long to make these. This needs to be cut off, but I wanted to match. One thing I did do, anytime I do a taper, I always put an arrow that points towards the taper so I don't forget which direction is the angled portion. So I want these to be about 19 or 19 and a half inches long, which I think I can get away with. Let's do 19 and a quarter. But first of all, I'm just going to make sure all these sides are square. So I'll run those through the table saw, square those up, and then I'll cut them to the end length that I end up wanting. All right, and last thing I'm gonna do for the legs is I'm going to clean up the other side, the flat side. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is make mortises, and there's different ways you can do this. Started off by using a doweling jig, which would center the holes for the dowels. Put the wood in there and crank it down. There's always a new tool to buy. Or a biscuit joiner, which uses standard biscuits. Or the next thing up is a Festool domino joiner, which uses loose tenons. Used them all. They all work. Each has their purpose and uses, but I find that since I have this, I go to that. So, all right. So I'll go grab some wood, and then we're going to start doing the mortises for the loose tenons. All right. So I'm going to use. These are all going to be all the styles. I actually looked at the grain of the wood to decide which I wanted to be on the front, sides, and the back. So these are all going to have the loose tenons put at the top. So I'm going to do all these first, and I'm going to use the face of it as the reference. You can use either, but you just got to pick one. Okay. And then when I put the loose tenons in there, they'll all line up and the faces should be flat. If they need a little sanding, then we'll do that. But I'm not going to film the rest. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. But that's the general idea. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the dado in the rails and stiles. For both of them, I'm able to take them all the way through because on the rails that come across, there'll be a leg which will hide the dado at the end. If I didn't want to show it, then I'd probably use the router to do a stop dado. But since I'm going all the way through and I'm using legs and it'll hide it, I'm just going to use the dado blade for all of them. And I'm going to reference off of the face to be consistent. So I mark those and then I'll put that towards the fence, run it through, and then that shouldn't take long. All right, so I calculated out after measuring the rails and stiles how big my panels need to be, and the height of them have to be like 13 5/8, and the length of the long panels have to be about 33 1/8, and the other sides have to be like 15 1/16 long. So I'm going to cut all the height of the panels first, so 13 5/8. All right, next step, I'm going to take the 1/2" plywood, and I ran a test piece to see if it'll fit into that dado, and I want it to fit in pretty snug and just be kind of just under the back of the board there. So I ran that. So I can take the panels and run those through on all 4 sides. So that way it'll fit inside all those dados. All right, so after you run them through the dado, they're probably just a hair too thick to fit in there. So what I'm going to do is grab shoulder plane and take off the rough edge first. See how well those fit. These first. Yeah, I think that'll work. So just do that for all the panels. Alright, so a little test fit's pretty good. And we'll do that for all four. All right, so I put the panels together, and now I think I'm going to take them over to the router, and I'm going to round over the edges on the inside. One thing I have to make sure is that I don't route too far on the rails because I want it to be nice and flush where the stiles come up. So I'll just take over just a little 1/8 inch rounding on the inside.